Hello and welcome to the ReVue YouTube channel. This is a new channel that my friend and I are going to be starting, Andy, who's unfortunately not with me today, but he will be featuring in some of the other videos. My name's Mike, and basically what we're looking to do is review products that have been around for a little while and actually use the products rather than just give you a spec list. We want real life, real world use of these things and tell you the ins and outs, the pros and the cons, would we buy it again, and all that kind of stuff. So today, let's jump straight into it. We're going to be talking about the ReVue gimbal and selfie stick. This portion of the video is actually filmed on the ReVue 4K camera. This is not the Plus variant, this is the standard variant, and this is being recorded in 2.7K 30 frames per second that I'm going to compress to 1080 for editing purposes. First things first, we're going to look at what you get with this kit. So there's the camera itself that I've got here that we're recording on. We get this nice case here, which is a zip case with ReVue embossed on the front. And then on the inside of the case, we have the hardware. Inside the kit itself, you would usually have the ReVue camera here, but this isn't the purpose of this video. As mentioned, I'm currently using it to film, and also there's quite a lot of videos on the ReVue 4K camera, but not that many on the gimbal and the selfie stick combo. So for the purpose of this video, we're not going to be focusing on the actual camera. In the case, you will receive the gimbal itself, which I will show you in more detail shortly, the selfie stick with Bluetooth remote, a charger for the batteries for the gimbal. Now these are 18350 batteries. If anybody ever vapes, they would know this battery. It hasn't really got that many applications, but it appears there's another one here. The battery for the camera itself goes into this slot here, and then in here is the USB cable that's used to charge the camera. Now if we take the gimbal out, as you can see, there is a foam cutout for each of these parts, which is a nice little touch as it stops everything moving around inside the case. Same applies for the charger and the selfie stick. Now if I angle the camera slightly backwards, you will see there is also a netting area for extra bits and bobs. Now in there at the moment I've just got a memory card adapter and the instruction manual that came with it, but you can put whatever you want in there. You can put extra memory card. I tend to keep the charging cable in there just because it's a bit of a pain to get it back into the slot. Keep GoPro accessories, you could keep your phone, I guess you could put that in there, because there is actually quite a bit of depth between the bottom and the top when it's closed, so it gives you a bit of space for extras. So here we're back, and we are now with the gimbal itself. Now I'm now filming with my Samsung Galaxy S8, so if you've noticed any difference in quality or audio or video or anything like that, that's because I've changed over. Now if you wonder why I'm not filming with the ReVue, there is a reason for that. So first of all, this is the gimbal itself that takes the ReVue camera, and here's the ReVue camera out of the gimbal. Now if we switch this on without the camera inside of it, you'll notice that it rattles like mad. And I can actually feel the gimbal fighting against itself because there's nothing inside of it. So I'm presuming that there's some form of counterweight in there, or the system knows that there's not a camera in there. So therefore it's constantly fighting against the fact that there should be a little bit more weight in it. Now once you put the camera in, you'll see in a minute that there's no rattling. So now we have the camera in place, that's inside the gimbal. So if we switch it on, you will now see that there's no rattling. It does its little robot thing and it sets itself up. Now, for a long time, I struggled with how to actually get this camera in here. I was removing this plate completely that you can see along the front there with the two screws, and then sliding the camera in. And the reason that I was doing that was because this lens was actually blocking me sliding the camera in. Now it turns out that I was using the camera and the gimbal the wrong way. So if we switch this off, and you'll see it die, I was actually running the camera in the complete wrong direction. I can't even replicate it now, but basically I had it the wrong way around so that the lens was getting in the way and we still had the button on the top. Obviously you need that button on the top so that you can actually film. That design's not great. Either there should be a way that this gimbal sort of tells you to put the thing in, or it should be a little bit more obvious than that, because I'm a relatively techie person and I was actually removing this whole plate and the 2 screws, and the problem with that is not a huge issue when you're using it on a table or in the car or something like that. But if you're out and about and you want to stop and just whip the gimbal out and put it in, it wasn't great. Now, I've actually just realised that that was the issue, so it's not as obvious as you might think. Included in the kit is the telescopic selfie stick, pole, whatever you want to call it. It's a standard 1/4 inch thread, and the same is on the bottom of the gimbal, and the same is on the bottom of the camera. Now this is a standard fitment for cameras around the world, I believe. GoPro brought in their own one of these that fixes onto the camera, and it seems to have taken the world by storm. But for your DSLRs and your traditional cameras, they are this fitment. Now this stick itself has quite a good weight to it. It's got a hand strap and everything along those lines. It's got a telescopic ability. It can go to sort of this length, and then it'll lock back into place so that the things don't move. Twist it back down, nice and simple. The remote itself is pretty standard. There's a remote on there. I find it quite difficult to actually get off here, like I feel like I'm going to break it. It does come out of this, so there's your remote itself. Guess you could take this while you were underwater, because there's no mechanical parts in it. Whether or not there would be anything that rusts, doesn't appear to be. Yeah, and that's pretty much it in terms of the selfie stick. Here we are with the two of them combined. So as you can see, the gimbal is turned on, it's attached to the stick, and it's doing its thing. There's 3 different modes in it for the gimbal itself. Basically, you can lock the roll, you can lock the pan and tilt, I believe, and then there's almost like a follow mode, and you do this by tapping the different buttons on the front, and they have different light combinations. Now I will put the actual instructions on the screen in a minute, but obviously that wasn't really the purpose of this video. So the purpose of this video for me was to give you an actual in-depth what my thoughts are on this, having used it for a good while now. All in all, I actually really like the way that it performs. I'm not a big fan of how it looks. So if you look at that, it is quite a bulky bit of kit, and it's this section at the bottom here that gives you the battery life that is promised in this thing. It could be a bit slicker, maybe if they put a built-in battery, but then I guess the whole point of them giving you replaceable batteries is so that you can have multiple batteries. Yeah, looks-wise, I don't know. I think it's a bit garish, especially if you've got this thing extended out to the moon. It's almost a bit much. It can be done in a much smaller form, aka the new gimbal from ReVue. However, the one thing that I do really like about this one over the other one is the fact that it is a standalone gimbal, which means that I can connect it to this, and I can then connect it to this with the standard GoPro fitment at the bottom. Now this isn't a real GoPro one, this is from Amazon, cheap as anything, but it does the job great. So what I do is when I get into the car, I clip this on my dash, set the gimbal to do this, and I can film hyperlapse or time-lapse videos with no stuttering and no movement whenever I go over any bumps or anything. And I'll put a clip of that in here now. So we've discussed the fact that I'm not a huge fan of how it looks. I think it's a little bit cumbersome for what it is, and it could probably be done better, but I am willing to overlook that because it gives me the ability to place this on various different things, and I quite like the fact that it has just a standard fitment, which means it's not going to be difficult at all for me to get various adapters and sticks and holsters and all this sort of stuff. Whereas if you've got an all-in-one, something like the GoPro Karma or even the new ReVue gimbal, You cannot do anything with that gimbal. It is built into the body. The camera's slightly different because you can take it off and put it into a drone. Don't get me started on that. But the gimbal itself is part of the mechanism, and you can't really change that. You can't put it anywhere else. So you couldn't have a selfie stick stood up on your dashboard in your car. You couldn't put it on a suction mount to the side or the bonnet. So with this, I quite like it because I actually wear it on my chest as well sometimes when I'm walking. So what's it like performance-wise? Battery life, amazing. Literally can't say anything bad about that. The fact that it's replaceable 18350 batteries as well is great because they're pennies on the internet. They all charge to 4.2 volts, and there's various milliamp hour ratings out there that you can get better time with it. The usability is a little bit complex sometimes. It's taken me a little bit of time to get used to what mode does what, and that's fair enough because they're used in different areas. But I almost wish there was a switch on the side that you could flick rather than push the button, because it's sometimes difficult to remember what the flashing combinations mean. So you could think you're in one mode and you're in another mode and you just ruin a shot. Once you've got it set up though, it is brilliant. Really, really happy with this. And I wasn't entirely sure how much different it was going to be with the electronic image stabilization that comes built in with this camera and GoPros and the like, which is basically it crops it down so that the edges aren't juddery. You can't run that in 4K 30 frames on this. You can run it in 2K, but it chops down your image. The whole point of these cameras is to have a nice wide angle lens. So I have done a comparison video of the Yi 4K with and without the gimbal. Now I'm walking in snow in these videos. I'm cold, my hands are shaking. And although it might look like I'm trying to make it juddery, I'm not. I'm trying to keep this as steady and as secure as possible when I'm walking. So I'll put that on there now and you can see a side-by-side video of what your thoughts are. As you can see, there's a big difference between the two. Now, that's all well and good for walking in the snow and everything along those lines, but what's it like in terms of weight? Now, funnily enough, not bad. I was a little bit concerned about how cumbersome it looked and everything, but the batteries and the camera and everything built in, so what is basically going to sit on top of the selfie stick, 345 grams. Now, that isn't too bad. I'll put some comparisons here. Pretty easy to carry around with you. So all in all, the gimbal, I think it's awesome. I think it's very, very cool. There's a couple of things that would change. For example, this mechanism here, the way that it actually looks, this big bulky section at the bottom, maybe I would have liked to have changed it to a built-in battery because you get like 4.5 hours. So I haven't used it all up in one go. There is a micro USB port on the side, but unfortunately it's not for charging. So you have to use the separate part of the kit that comes with the kit for the batteries. Again, not a big issue, but you've got multiple things going around there. Now the stick itself, the selfie stick, I mean, what can you really say about a selfie stick? It has a Bluetooth remote built into it with a mode button on the front, which changes between camera and video, and then you've got your stop-start button. It's simple, easy, uses Bluetooth. It's quite small and it's quite difficult to get out of here, which is pretty good. It's got a replaceable battery in the back. It looks like a watch battery to me, but having not really used it a vast amount, I can't imagine the batteries are going to need changing that often. I certainly haven't had any indication that I need to. It's got a lock here which allows you to move the threads connector around so that you can actually angle it as well, and then you can move it side to side. The thread connector is quite good because it actually is a plate that you can screw up and down, so you can have different amounts of thread in the camera, and then you can really lock it against it as well, which is good. Then on the stick itself, it has a diagram that shows you when it's locked and unlocked. So basically you twist the stick and it brings out section 1. You twist it again brings out section 2, 3 and 4, and then you lock each individual section into itself based on the twisting of this. I'm not a massive selfie stick kind of guy. I'd rather put a mount on and hold it on there, but I suppose this is not a bad alternative. It also very oddly has a standard screw at the bottom that can go into a tripod. So I'm not entirely sure why you would need this, but you can put your selfie stick on a tripod with your gimbal on top of there. It's there and it does what it does. I guess there's probably quite big tripod systems out there that would not be bad for adding the stick on, and maybe you need a little bit of extra height. Who knows? But when it comes out of the case, it actually comes with a wrist strap, so if you drop it or anything along those lines, you are golden. Now, all in all, I'm very, very happy with this kit, and I think it's really cool. But we do have one more test for this. For this test, I need the help of one of my friends. Now, he goes by the name of Jamie Pav, and he has a YouTube channel as well, which I'll put down at the bottom here. Jamie is a car enthusiast and has got some very nice and very exotic cars. And I texted him the other day and asked him if he would help me with a video. So we're going to see how the Yi gimbal and selfie stick holds up against one of his cars. So here we are with my good friend Jamie Pav, aka Dr. Pav. He's decided to let us do a little video in his Audi RS3. I'll get him to give you some specs in a moment, but let's have a little listen to what it sounds like.
So yeah, this is the 2017-2018 Audi RS3. It's got a 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo. It does 0 to 60 in, I think they claim 4.1. Most people on the internet say it's about 3.9, so it's plenty quick enough. And obviously it's got quattro 4-wheel drive, so launch control is pretty exciting.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a first video without the gimbal, and we're going to see how it reacts to the launch control, and then we'll do a second video with the gimbal. So the first one is going to be without. Now we're going to try it with the gimbal. So, there we have it. The Yi handheld gimbal versus an Audi RS3. Now that test was just a little bit of fun, just to see how it fared, and it didn't do quite as well as I expected it to do. But you can see a noticeable difference in the shaking from side to side with the gimbal. Not surprising considering the Audi is quite a powerful car, and this is a bit of a cheaper gimbal, and that thing is a race car. That brings me to the end of our very first video here on ReVue. We are still learning and we're still quite new to YouTube, so I apologise if any of the footage is not great. And if there's anything that we could do better, I would gladly take your comments. Please do remember to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you do like it. I am hoping to bring more content in the not so distant future. I've got a couple of ideas in mind, but if there's anything specific you would like to see, please let me know in the comments. I'll put a link to Jamie's YouTube channel too, so you can see his various cars, and I'll also put a link to the Yi camera and Yi handheld gimbal kit. Thank you very much for Yi for allowing me to do this review, and hopefully we will be able to bring you some more in the future. So this is us signing off from ReVue. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.